There's an easy way to maximize Jordan Love in 2025 and beyond. Do more of the things this offense is already good at it. And there's two big easy buttons they can press.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. We have a situation with the Green Bay Packers where two things they do really well offensively that they just don't do enough. And this is one of the easiest ways for a team to maximize the talent that they have. In this case, I'm talking about Jordan Love. Now, I've given you a million stats over the last couple of weeks about why Jordan Love, at least from a productivity standpoint, I know the eye test is a different thing, but from a productivity standpoint, Jordan Love was a top 10 quarterback last year by all the metrics that I care about. I just went to look it up the other day. 6th in DYAR, which is defense adjusted yards above replacement, which is a fancy way of saying how many more yards did he create or did he get than the average quarterback against that defense. Faced one of the toughest defensive schedules in the NFL last season. DYAR is a counting stat. So the more games you play, the more opportunities you have to add or subtract from it. So he started 15 games, but really only played 14 games. Jordan Love last year in 17 games was 6th in DYAR. So steady, but not, because he played fewer games. If you're going to do it on like a per game basis, he was better. Okay. What they changed is they reduced play action. We've talked about this a ton. Top 5 in EPA per dropback when they used play action, but were middling in play action usage. Jared Goff, he's golfing right now. Jared Goff had 100 more play action dropbacks than Jordan Love. 100. That's what, 6-7 a game more. When Jordan Love is elite at doing it. It's one of those things, play action, where we have not seen any team even approach a point at which FTN Fantasy, formerly DVO or Football Outsiders, and they wrote about it when it was Football Outsiders a couple years ago, that we have not approached the point at which a team has over-indexed play action. Essentially, you can't, or not that you can't, we have not in the NFL reached a point where any team is using play action so much that it is not still a more efficient play than a normal straight drop back. Now, part of that is the situations. You're more likely to drop back on 3rd and long, 2nd and long, and those are easier downs to defend. More likely to use play action on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 2 in run situations where run pass is truly in play. But that's the point. That's the point. If you can pick up 15 yards on 1st and 10 because you use play action, that's a lot easier than having to pick up 15 yards on 3rd and 8 when the defense knows you have to pass. So that's one of the easy buttons they can press. They have to find a way this offseason to be better in that area. If you want to run from the gun more, great, do that. You have to find the play actions off of it. And even if it is just a token run fake, that can affect linebackers when the running back in question is Josh Jacobs. When it's a really good player, when it's Emmanuel Wilson, it's a little bit different. When it's A.J. Dillon, it's a little bit different. But you don't have to make it all. And Matt LaFleur, I thought, gave a good answer. He made the distinction. Hey, if we're just like kind of mush pass blocking up front, but we give a token run fake from under center, is that play action? The Packers apparently don't really call it that. He thinks of play action as, oh, you pulled a guard across the formation, or you're running split zone play action where you're going to block that fake like you're going to block that defensive end and then swing out, something like that. There are other forms of play action. If you make it look like a run, or it's a situation where it is a run, or it could be a run, that's effective. In the aggregate, those plays are effective. So that's just one piece. They have to find a way to lean into that more. And that comes with being aggressive. I saw that Pat Noonan from Acme Packing Company pointed out the Packers were extremely conservative on second and short. Extremely. That is when you should be going bombs away. In 2020, they were one of the most aggressive teams ever on second and short, throwing deep. Because teams are expecting you to just run to pick up the first down. And the Packers were effective. They were successful often on 2nd and 1, picking up the first down, but now it's 1st and 10. And I know it seems weird. It's a little bit like that old baseball theory where you'd rather rally together hits, where if you got a runner on first, you'd rather hit a double and drive him in than hit a home run. And like there are some like baseball players who believe that. There is a part of baseball fandom and even media who think that that's actually the better way to do it. I don't even know what the numbers are on that, if that's true or not. But to me, I'd rather create an opportunity to go play action and take a shot, hope I can get those linebackers sucked up and create an explosive play behind them. You want to help this short and intermediate passing game. That is a great way to do it. Another great way to do it is with no huddle. The Packers were top 5. Jordan Love specifically, top 5 in EPA per dropback in the no huddle situation. Now, some of that is going to be, yes, coming back late in these games. But in nearly every case, they're within one score at the end. He's driving down to make it a one-score game to hope his defense can get one stop. I don't know what the win probability is in all of that, but we're talking about 5% of snaps. So it's not a big cohort. I understand that, but we can think of times. There was that drive at the end of the season when with 30 seconds left, they just bang, bang, bang. I don't remember if I think it was either the 49ers or the Dolphins. I don't remember which. It was one of those games where they just completed 4 passes, kicked a field goal in the no huddle. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. Jordan Love, one of the reasons why the no huddle can be good is, number one, it's mentally and physically taxing to play this Packers team. They throw so much at you, different formations, different personnel, pre-snap motion, eye candy, all of that stuff. And then you got to try and rush the pass. You got to try to tackle Josh Jacobs and tackle Tucker Kraft and tackle Jaden Reed and chase around Jordan Love, who's one of the most unsackable quarterbacks in the league. It's not easy. If you go no huddle, now it's a little bit more feel. You're keeping the same guys on the field. Those same tired pass rushers are staying on the field. The tired front has got to stay on the field. And now Jordan Love gets into a little bit of rhythm. You're not worried about these long play calls. The clock's not going to zero. The defense is not getting a chance to rest. It's a little bit more rhythmic. It's okay, to the line, to the line, to the line. And it's just bang. It's usually shorter throws too. Bang, bang, bang. Jordan Love is a great quick game thrower. I was talking about this on X the other day with the Eagles game. He was excellent on quick game. Excellent on quick game. I mean, I was kind of shocked going back through it. I was like, wait, he was like kind of way better than I thought he was. Going back and watching it again. So, and charting it. So it's one of those things where he started 9 for 9 against the Eagles. And the miss was the Malik Heath stumble. He's 12 for 15 for 86 yards on throws under 2.5 seconds, under 10 air yards, and no play action. Guess what? A lot of your no huddle plays are going to be those types of quick game throws. And you don't need a bunch of interesting concepts because the defense has to be a little less exotic because they can't, okay, no, it's 2nd and 8 and they like to get to this. No, you just got to go. You just got to get the call in. And then some teams are going to start blitzing you. Then you have an answer for that. But usually you got to make a simple call. And you're just going. It's something that the Eagles did with some effect on the Packers in the playoff game. It's something that they did in situational opportunities where, okay, run to the line on 3rd down, see if you can get them to jump, then back out and call a new play. You got to keep everyone's personnel on the field and figure out where to go from there. I like that. One of the things Brian Gutekunst said he wanted to see from Jordan Love is more control of the game. This is a great way to give him more control. The weird thing is we didn't see Aaron Rodgers really use tempo to great effect. He kind of doesn't like that. He wants to grind out the clock every time. It's a little counterintuitive. And so it's just one of those things that I think they can use more of. Again, top 5 in EPA per dropback in play action and in no huddle, and they're middling in their usage. If you're good at the thing, do the thing more until we have evidence that doing it more makes you less effective at doing it. That's what I would say. You don't preemptively say, well, if we do this more, it becomes less effective. No, prove it. The Washington Commanders run no huddle at a rate that is bonkers, like triple the rest of the league. It works great. They lit up the Lions doing it. I think the Packers, look, the youngest team thing, I don't want to hear it anymore. Except for when we talk about it next on Locked On Packers. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your need, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. I've seen in my own life the benefits to therapy. As a listener to this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace. So you can go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month. Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL. Easy. Promo code SPACE80. I had a follower on X point this out to me. That if you go back and look at the youngest teams in the league over the last decade, one thing stands out. And that is only 2 teams in the last decade have a winning record. Only 2 teams in the last decade have gone to the playoffs that were the youngest team in the NFL. 2 teams. Can you guess? The Green Bay Packers and the Green Bay Packers. Last year and this most recent season. Now remember too, this was an MO constantly of the Ted Thompson teams. They wanted to always be churning over the roster, drafting and developing. That was the goal. Guys that didn't fit, didn't work, you're gone. Old players who are not contributing, who can't play special teams. That's one of the things about older players. They tend not to play special teams. They're out. They're gone. And the Packers, more often than not, made the right decisions on who to let go and who to retain. It is imperative that we keep perspective on this, especially when we're talking about Matt LaFleur, when we're talking about Brian Gutekunst. This team is uniquely talented for being the youngest team in the league. Evan Williams and Edgerrin Cooper just made the all-rookie team. They look like potential star players in the NFL. At the very least, high-quality starters. We don't even know what Jordan Morgan and Javon Bullard are. And while we didn't see huge steps forward from guys like Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Luke Musgrave, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, those are all solid, good players. Tucker Kraft did take a step forward. Sean Ryan took a big step forward. I think Josh Myers took a step forward. Keyshawn Nixon took a step forward. We don't think of Keyshawn Nixon as a young player. He still is relatively young. So the expectations, I understand, went through the roof this last season. All this young talent, they go to the playoffs, they win a playoff game. Youngest playoff team ever to win. Youngest playoff team in the league. Youngest team in the league again. Some of the mistakes are to be expected. But there is the flip side of this. That, well, but that's just the number now. Here's what Brian Gutekunst said.
Well, I know we're young from a number perspective, but obviously these guys they've played a lot of football and playoff football at that, so I don't, there's certainly we're young from a number perspective, but from an experience perspective, I don't think we're young at all. And I think that's an excuse that we just don't have any use for. Certainly we add veterans all the time. I mean, we added, 2 in free agency this year and some other guys off the street that significantly helped us this year. So that'll always be part of our process. But no, I feel really good about our team and the experience we have. I don't think experience held us back at all.
That echoes what Matt LaFleur said. This age is just a number idea. They've been to the playoffs now twice as a team. They've been in big games. They've won big games. That's what I don't find the criticisms this year I find to be a little stilted, because essentially the same roster and the guys that they added are good from last year that won big games, couldn't win big games this year. I just think that part of this is small sample size theater. I don't think that the 2023 team that went to Detroit and jumped the Lions, that beat the Chiefs, the eventual Super Bowl champs, that beat the daylights out of the Dallas Cowboys and gave the San Francisco 49ers everything they could handle. I don't think that team just forgot how to play football, just forgot how to show up to big games. I think culturally, there were some things that they had to address and need to address leadership-wise. I think there is a difference between being a young, up-and-coming team and the team for whom there is real expectation. But at the same time, they are a young team. And so some of these mistakes are to be expected. The question is, at what point do you say, this team is good enough to compete, but if they don't change the things that are a result of being the youngest team in the league, the lack of discipline, some of the silly mistakes like the TJ Slayton unnecessary roughness penalty, those kinds of things, they just can't happen in a playoff game. Not when all you need is one stop to give yourself a chance. And so this front office is going to have to make a decision. Is the youngest team in the league thing still tenable now? I understand wanting to go out in free agency and sign players for whom contracts make sense for all 4 years. Most contracts are 2 years and we'll see. Andrew Brandt loves to say that, friend of the show. But you still sign 4-year contracts, 5-year contracts. You want to sign a player who, when you sign a 4-year contract, you would like to see play all 4 years. That is sort of the Packers' MO, that even if they don't, and even if that it's set up so that in 2 years, you got to renegotiate that sucker anyway, or you got to move money around, or you got to do something. Even if that's the case, you want to sign that contract with the understanding that in 2 years, maybe you extend that player, or you have outs to move on. And you actually are using those 2 extra years to kind of fake it. But that's why they like a 26-year-old Josh Jacobs, a 26-year-old Xavier McKinney. Second contract guys are their bread and butter because they want to bring in young, hungry veterans. You're a veteran at 26. You played 4 years in the league. You know what it's like to be on, in their cases, bad teams almost exclusively. You want to be a part of a winning situation. You want to go compete for a Super Bowl. Those are the kinds of players that they want to bring in, and I get that. Xavier McKinney was a huge stabilizing force in this defense. Josh Jacobs was the most consistent player on offense comfortably. But if you're having to constantly churn through the roster, and because those guys, as Brian Gutekunst admitted, are not available every year, how are you making sure that the veterans on your team are the right makeup relative to your young players? The beauty of young players is they grow up to be veterans. And I think that's the point that Brian Gutekunst is making. Like, look, yes, we have these young players. Jordan Love is going into year 3 as a starter, veteran. Jaden Reed is going into year 3 in the league, veteran. Christian Watson, year 4. Romeo Dobbs, year 4. Those are veteran players now. There is no young player excuse. So if you're not performing, you got to go. It's part of the conversation we had yesterday. Quay Walker, class of 2022. You're a vet, buddy. Devontae Wyatt, you're a vet. A vet playing 40% of snaps, 45% of snaps. It's not enough for a first-round pick. So they need more out of guys like Lucas Van Ness, but it's going to be year 3 for him. The expectation going into camp is that at least right now, as this roster is constructed, you're starting. Well, that means passing Kingsley Enagbare. It might even mean passing Brenton Cox the way this team is currently constructed, the way that they were playing at the end of last season. We'll see if that's the direction that they go, but they have to ask, I think, some difficult questions about how they want this team to be made up. But I don't want any of that to overshadow the job that was done by this front office and this coaching staff, getting teams that basically don't work in terms of being winners. They do not work. And not only did they make them winners, they made them playoff teams. And I understand, look, if you don't extend the playoff, a 9-8 team is not getting in. Well, guess what? They extended the playoff. And if they don't extend the playoff, an 11-win Packers team isn't getting in. Okay, well, but they did extend the playoff, and they won 11 games. You deserve to be in the playoffs with 11 wins. Like, this is ridiculous. So I'd like to see them change that seating. I've talked about this. Different issue. We can hold these two truths in our hands at once. It is remarkable what the Packers have done to build the youngest team in the league 2 years in a row, to go to the playoffs with the youngest team two years in a row, essentially unheard of. That is a credit to the talent and the coaching. But that brings you to the now what part of this. And when you go back and you look at the early Ted Thompson years, they brought in Charles Woodson. They brought in Ryan Pickett. Those guys were hugely impactful in them going out and winning a Super Bowl. They had to bring in some veterans off the street, some street free agents, and make that all work to win a Super Bowl. And then Ted Thompson kind of struggled for a long time because he wanted to be this young team. Well, you have Aaron Rodgers. You can't just be the youngest team. You have to bring in some veteran players. Finally did with Julius Peppers. And look what happened. They immediately go to the NFC Championship game. When you bring in a future Hall of Famer like Julius Peppers, just don't tell Morgan Burnett to go down. We're going to talk about some of the options that the Packers might have. We're going to do that tomorrow, though. Some Julius Peppers-esque moves that they might be able to make. We're going to talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Packers. Next, I want to talk about this idea. Speaking of our coaches and GM conversation, about the urgency that might or might not come from a change in presidency. And I'm talking about in Green Bay, not, the other one. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets with your first win. I was taken aback. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money. I paused there for a second because I was like, wait, $300? Are you serious? $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app, easy to navigate with a variety of bets. It keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No more waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL. Now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. This idea of urgency, and I've been seeing this from some fans on social media, hearing about it from some media people, about the Packers and the extent to which Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst are on the hot seat. We are at least a year away from having that conversation. If they go to the playoffs again and lose again, I still do not believe, unless it's a collapse, unless it's a 2021-like collapse, I do not believe changes are coming to the organization. That may piss you off, because you want accountability, damn it. That is something I hear from fans all the time. Where is the accountability? Which is really just shorthand for, I want that guy fired because he did something I didn't like, which is just not how it works. Or at least it's not how smart teams operate. It's not how good companies operate. You are allowed to make mistakes unless it, costs a lot of money. And frankly, coaching mistakes don't cost that much money. Like usually in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much. But one of the things that I heard is from people saying, well, new president, and he might want to get his guys in there. And I just wish people would stop trying to make the president into something it isn't. Stop trying to make the president of the Packers an owner, a meddlesome owner. There was this idea that Mark Murphy has all his little tentacles in all sorts of stuff behind the scenes. There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. We have a report from our pal Ty Dunn saying he told Aaron Rodgers, don't be the problem, which, by the way, he did. But that's not really meddling. That's being a leader in your organization, telling your quarterback, hey, we're bringing in a new coach. Don't be a jerk. Don't be the reason this doesn't work. Because we know there were tensions with Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. But we don't have evidence in reporting or otherwise that ownership, certainly not lately, was ever going and putting their thumbs on the scales. For as long as most of the people listening have been alive, the Packers have benefited from just outstanding stewardship from their owners. Bob Harlan belongs in the Hall of Fame. Mark Murphy turned this team into a hugely profitable enterprise. Never a problem with the coffers for the smallest market team in the NFL. And all they print money. The Titletown District, all the stuff, people scoffed. They laughed. Guess what? It's awesome. And it makes money. And they're still making money. Now, this is the criticism, of course. That's all they care about now is making money. By the way, it's a business, like, duh. But also, Mark Murphy that's his concern. It's the front office's concern to try and win football games. There is no evidence in the almost 40 years that I've been alive that a Packers president would come in and say, nah, you know what? I want my guys. This is not a general manager. This is not a new GM coming in and saying, nah, I didn't hire this coach. Get him out of here. Not to mention, Matt LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the NFL, one of the most successful coaches in the NFL. Active win percentage, he's second in the league. One of the best win percentages of all time. It is ridiculous to believe that after 1 year, Ed Policy would come in and say, not my guy. Get him out of here. No. What? Where? Why? What? This is a guy who is a lawyer by trade. He's not coming in as some power-hungry, craven, like Mark Murphy hired and fired athletic directors. He's a former football player. It follows, I guess, that he would come in and say, I think I have knowledge of this thing, And so I have football relevant information to provide here. Like Roger Goodell is the commissioner of the league. But I don't think Commissioner Goodell, if he retired tomorrow and went to be the president of the Packers, would believe he had input to offer on player acquisition or coaching, hiring, and firing. Maybe he would because it's Roger Goodell. But like that's kind of where Ed Policy is coming from. He's worked on the business side, the legal side. What makes you think he would come in and start meddling in these other things? There's just no evidence for that. So I'm heading this off now before this burbles up because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's no evidence. Mark Murphy, when they had to finally move on from Ted Thompson, one of the reasons was Ted Thompson was in failing health. He was no longer able physically to do the job. And when they moved on from Mike McCarthy, it took one of the worst regular season losses in Packers history to make that happen during the season. That was untenable behind the scenes, all sorts of infighting and backbiting, and it was toxic. It would have to degrade to that level for us to start entertaining these ideas of Matt LaFleur on the hot seat, number one, or number two, Ed Policy of all people coming in and going, nah, I want my guys. No, that's not how the job works. The Packers don't have an owner. It is a feature, not a bug. He is going to leave the football people alone, let them run everything, and only if he absolutely has to step in. This is projection from people who want the president to be more active in football ops, but then also complain that they would. They want, this is from the people who are going, actually, it would actually be good if the Packers had an owner, when it would not be. Owners are bad. Do you see what's going on in Jacksonville right now? That Shad Khan kept Trent Baalke way too long, and it cost them multiple qualified coaches that they wanted to hire because they didn't want to work with Trent Baalke because Shad Khan likes Trent Baalke. And then they fire him after losing out on Liam Cohen and Ben Johnson. Like, are you kidding me? Owners are not a benevolent influence on your team. If anything, they are malevolent, malignant impacts on your team. Don't turn the president of the Packers into one of those people. They aren't, and don't wish that they were either. All right. Like I said, I want to talk about a potential Julius Peppers-esque acquisition. Does it make sense? Would Brian Gutekunst entertain it? We'll talk about it tomorrow on Locked On Packers. Until then, follow me on the social media, subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you get podcasts, subscribe over on our YouTube channel so you can stay Locked On Packers.